I was 21 years when I wrote this song. I'm 22 now, but I won't be for long. People ask me when will you grow up to be a man, but all the girls I loved at school are already pushing prams. I loved you then as I love you still. Though I put you on a pedestal, they put you on the pill. I don't feel bad about letting you go, I just feel sad about letting you know. I don't want to change the world, I'm not looking for a New England, I'm just looking for another girl. I don't want to change the world, I'm not looking for a New England, I'm just looking for another girl. I love the words you wrote to me, but that was bloody yesterday. I can't survive on what you send every time you need a friend. I saw 2 shooting stars last night, I wished on them, but they were only satellites. It's wrong to wish on space hardware. I wish you'd care. I don't want to change the world, I'm not looking for New England, I'm just looking for another girl. I don't want to change the world, I'm not looking for New England, I'm just looking for another girl. Looking for another girl, looking for another girl, looking for another girl. When he drops you off, I will not say who was that who so quickly drove away. The things you've done and the places you've been. When I open the door for you, I will not let them in. As long as you come back to me, I will never ask. For you I will be the man in the iron mask. You said you loved me and it broke my heart. I was always your prisoner right from the start. The nights you spend without me, this house is like a dungeon, and you only return to torture me more. You must have your reasons, I will not ask. For you I will be the man in the iron mask. The busy girl buys beauty, the pretty girl buys style, and the simple girl buys what she's told to buy, and sees her world through the brightly lit eyes of the glossy romance of fashion, where she can learn top tips from a gas cook, successful secrets of a sexual kind, the daily drill for beautiful hair, and the truth about pain. What was Anna Fool What did Angela Rippon say? What will you do when you wake up one morning to find that God's made you plain in a beautiful person's world, and all those quick recipes have let you down, and you're 20 and a half and you're not yet engaged? Will you go look for the boy who says, I love you, let's get married and have kids? The busy girl buys beauty, the pretty girl buys style, and the simple girl buys what she's told to buy. She's a world full of brightly lit eyes of the glossy romance of fashion, where she can learn top tips for the gas crew, successful secrets of a sexual kind.
Hey everybody, it's time to get started. Hopefully I'm not too crazy loud and the volumes and everything are set properly. I have a new haircut, for those of you who didn't notice. There's some fancy looking sexy hair there. You see, I can never get my point. Oh, I got it right that time. My pointing is working. I got to point more towards the front and not past the line. Anyway, I'm so not taking my shirt off. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants the shirt off. Trust me. Look, there's an editor. And that editor behind me is what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about the editor. I'm going to do some stuff that I wanted to do on the last stream, but I couldn't because I had technical issues that I have since solved. I've figured out, and when I say technical issues, I don't mean like you know, everything was broken. I mean like I'm not that smart when it comes to tech, and things confuse me, and I'm old, and I didn't know how to make my shit work, and I couldn't. But I spent some time. Now I got some stuff working. Things are going a little better, and now I actually figured out how to share a screen, and I'm going to show you guys how we build stuff, and some of the deep innards of how we build stuff. So for those of you who have all kind of wondered, I love those shows. I don't know if you've ever seen it, like on Discovery Channel or History Channel or whatever. They've always got, I don't know, they've got like a show called like How It's Made, and they show you like some random stuff, like I wonder how crayons are made, you know, and they show you the factory and here's how the wax get poured and all that, and you can kind of see like, this is how crayons get made, and you never thought like, how does a crayon get made? So I thought today I would sort of open up the process a little bit and let you have a look at the, you know, how this stuff gets made. I thought maybe that would be interesting for people. So I'm going to show you some of that in a minute. First of all, I want to just say hi to some of the folks who are here and some of our supporters, because I just want to thank everyone who always shows up. Hey, Silent One. Hey, Maple Tag. Hey, Monica. Hey, I cannot pronounce Bleakseek. I'm going to say Bleakseek. Bleakseek! Hey, Bleakseek! Hey, Jujastrum. Hey, Dally. Hey, everybody. So, yeah, thanks, everybody, for showing up. It's always huge. I want to take a little second to talk about that before we get started too much. I know that you guys don't believe this, but it's actually true. Hey, Dwarf! I didn't see you were there. Hey, Dwarf. Even you, Dwarf. This is even for you, Dwarf. Like, it's hard sometimes. You wake up sometimes and it's really hard to do this work, and you're frustrated and stuff's not working, and you know you're looking and you're saying like, I wonder if I should bother today. Like there's a lot of that emotion in building games because it's a long process. It's not, you know, if you want to do something that takes like a week to do or a month to do, that's one thing. But building a game like this, I mean, we're 9 months before this game is done. It's a long walk, and along that walk, every now and then, like once a week, to come here and have a whole bunch of people show up and be like, hey, tell me about your stuff. It's nice. It's really like you wake up and you say, all right, well, I guess some people give a shit, so I should do this. So just a shout out to everybody. Thanks for being here. So there's that. So I want to show you this editor for a minute. So this is our editor. This is for those of you who were in the show last week, you know this is how we build stuff in the game, right? And we've got up here, I got some buttons, and the buttons allow me to, you know, spam some stuff. And look, here's some trees, right? And I can play on some trees and stuff. The question is, how do we get to this point? Now, this editor's not entirely done yet. We've got a lot of other stuff to be making before this is done. And I want to show you something kind of funny. So we spent last week messing around with stuff because I wanted to rebuild a bunch of stuff in the editor and make it look a little better and stuff. And when we do that, you end up renaming a lot of stuff. So if you will remember, last week we built and here, I'm going to actually do something a little bit different. I'm going to just show you my whole screen so you can actually see what I'm doing. Because usually you just see the editor. Here, that's my screen. You can now see all of my screen. I should probably cut off that little bar down at the bottom so you don't see what's going on down there. That's where I keep my secret stuff. But no, that's my right hand screen. So now you can actually see everything that's going on while I'm building stuff. Will there be Monica moments? There will be Monica moments. But I'll get to that. I wanna like do a little bit and then we'll get to a Monica moment. There will be Monica moments today. So if you remember from last week, we built some maps, and one of the maps we built was Cleveland, right? And you remember what Cleveland looked like? It looked like a map. Well, let me show you what Cleveland looks like now. It looks like garbage, right? I named my hard drives. I named my hard drives after wizards. I try to remember what I named. I don't remember. I've got a hard drive named Sauron and a hard drive named Gandalf. I have another hard drive named Radagast. And it gets even sadder than that. Like, most of them are external hard drives. And so, like, I buy them in different colors so I can remember which one is which. And so, like, Gandalf is the gray one and Radagast is the brown one because it was Gandalf the gray. I have a Saruman the white hard drive. I swear to God, I'm the biggest nerd in the world. It's really true. Anyway, back to the editor. So you can see that this map is totally trashed. What's happened to get this map all totally trashed is I went in and I looked at, and this is like one of the things that you don't talk about very much, because it's not very sexy, but one of the things about game development that's important is actually naming conventions. Like, how do I name all my variables? How do I name all my data? And you'll see in a minute when I walk through all this, and that will be the Monica moment, by the way. When I walk through all this, you'll see, you know what? If you name something weird in the middle of this process, it makes everything get squirrely and strange. And so I went and looked, and a bunch of stuff was named really kind of squirrely. And a bunch of stuff was like leftover from when we were doing early prototyping. And I said, look, we got to systemize all of this. And so when we systemized all of this, all the names changed. And this map, of course, referenced all of the old names. And because it references all the old names, you get garbage when you change all of it. So there, that's what became of our map last week. As you can see, it's garbage. So now, this bit right here, Monica, we're going to start the Monica moment now. So this is the bit you can clip. This is it. This is Monica's time. Anyway, so what I want to talk about today is I want to show you how we get from nothing to something showing you in the game. And there's a couple tools that we use in the studio. We use some editors that we built ourselves inside the studio. We also use some tools. And one of the big tools that we use in the studio, believe it or not, is Microsoft Excel. And the reason we use Microsoft Excel is it's a great sort of data management tool. It allows us to put a bunch of data in one place and do calculations and things on data that, you know, Microsoft has figured out how to do a concatenate function and stuff like that. We don't have to write all that. It's all there. And it's easy for a designer like me to get in and look at a bunch of data in something like Excel. So let's take a look at for instance, I want to, let's take a look at this set of trees right here. Here's a nice little autumn forest, right? Ooh, look at that pretty autumn forest. And you can run a road through the little autumn forest and make a little path, you know, that's kind of pretty. And let's say that I want to put, you know, maybe not some autumn forest, but maybe some mixed autumn and not autumn forest here. Get rid of that road. So there's some pretty little stuff right there. And maybe over here, I want that to turn into like this not autumn forest at all, this kind of green forest, right? So let's say I want to build that. How do I get to the point where I can put that in the game, right? Well, it's all going to start somewhere very simple. It's going to start with some trees. So if I go over to my decals folder, right? Look, here's a bunch of stuff, right? That the artists have made for us. And so here's all the blah, 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 blah. Yeah, you see, there's my Gandalf the Grey hard drive. I'm not proud. I'm not proud. All right, just work with me on this. So anyway, here's a bunch of decals that the artists have made that we can put into the game with mushrooms and whatever. So somewhere in here, if I look around, I'll find there we go. Here's a bunch of foresty objects that the artists have made for me. And they've made some simple little trees and some simple little brushes. So here, for instance, is a block of forest. Woo, interesting. So how do I get that block of forest in the game? Well, importantly, I don't want that block of forest to just be a decal. I want it to have some kind of meaning. It has to be tagged. The player has to know that this block of forest is a forest and the forest has these properties and blah, blah, blah. I have to have all of that in the game. The other thing is when I go back to my editor, I want these forests to have, I want to be able to put down forests. I don't want to have to put down like 5 different kinds of forests and not have it tile. And what I mean by tile is if you take the same image and just go doot, 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 if there's one like white tree or let's say a yellow tree in the center of that, you'll see that yellow tree repeat. Boom, 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 boom. And it makes your map look really ugly. So you want it to not do that. So we want to make sure that each time I put down one of these forest tiles, you can see it's a little bit different. You don't see the tiling pattern here. So we want to make sure that we don't have ugly tiling in our stuff. So how do I put all that together? The other thing that I want to get to is I don't want, because remember, we're shipping this editor. So we can't just make this something that, designers like, oh, okay, I can deal with that. And there's a thing that I read and I understand how it all works. It has to all be very intuitive and simple for a user to get in and use. So what we do, we start with these trees, right? And I say, okay, I want that tree in my game. So the next thing I do is I go open up an Excel file. And let's see, here's my Excel file. And I'm actually going to have to, let's see, I have to check this out in SVN. And it may be the case that somebody's using it. Let's see if I can actually get the file in SVN. Is it going to let me do it? Now I got to update it. That's normal. All right, updated. All right, it looks like actually nobody's using it. So I can actually so now I've unlocked an SVN, which for those of you who don't know what SVN is, it's a piece of software that allows us to have source control over our software. So let's say I have this Excel file, which is the, here, I'll show you. So I need this data file, and there's a number of Excel files in the game that do different things. Here's the data file. And this data file, if I open it, includes a bunch of data about how this game is built. Here you go. Here it is there now. So here's, and you can see down at the bottom, there's a bunch of different tabs. All of these tabs allow us to do different things to the game. Right now, we're interested in the decals tab. But let's say I went and made a bunch of changes. I don't want to have all of those changes be something where I have to be like, hey, Nelson, I made a bunch of changes to this file, so make sure that you use this and email it to him. And you can't work like that. That's crazy, right? So what you do with SVN is there's one repository somewhere of all of the files, and you check out the file, you make your changes to it, you check it back in, and then when anyone else wants to use the file, they have to go and look in the repository, and the repository says, no, Chris is using that right now, so you don't want to mess with that file until Chris checks in his version, and then you can work on the version that he worked in. It's great. It's pretty simple stuff, and this is classic software stuff. Anyone who works in software knows this. And so what you can also do with the source control, by the way, is let's say I check this out and I do a bunch of horrible crap to it, and I check it back in, and now Adrian checks it out, and he's like, dude, you totally destroyed my file. Instead of me having to go fix it or find an, you can actually go in SVN, because SVN saves all those changes, and it'll say, well, why don't you use the last version of the file before Chris came and pooped all over it. So in that case, you can actually get back and sort of save your data. So that's why we use SVN. If some of this is really basic, I'm sorry. I know some people I don't know what people know and don't know, but there you go. Hey, Nelson. So anyway, here's a bunch of stuff. This is the decals folder. So in the decals folder, you can see I've got this decal over here named Fall 01. So somewhere in here, I'll find, there's Fall 01. And you'll notice it's actually, this is a thing that's only available when autumn happens, which I don't know if we're going to actually use that in the game or not. But anyway, so here I've actually referenced all of my art. So, and the reason I do it like this is I might want to use something for more than one thing. And I don't want to, because remember, when you're going to download this file, every one of these little pictures of trees shows up in your hard drive, right? And the more pictures of trees we have, the bigger the game is, and the longer it takes to download, and people don't like that. So we don't want to download the same asset 15 different times just because we use it in 15 different places. So I can actually say, for instance, if I want this fall 1 tree to be used like 5 different places and 5 different things, I could assign this decal to, or this piece of this texture to a bunch of different things, right? So Chris does something, then another guy deletes it and makes it better. Yeah, that's pretty much how it is. That's how the studio works. Anyway, back to this. So now I've decided that this is a decal. So the next thing I want to do is I need to define the tile shape. And when I talk about the tile shape, let's go back to our editor real quick. Here's the actually, let's go back to the other editor for a moment. We'll come back to this. So you'll notice not all of the tiles I place have only one hex. Some of them are multi-hex tiles, right? And the reason we have these multi-hex tiles, multi-hex tiles, there, I can say it, is because I may want to put some big stuff in here, like, bam, look at this big hunk of mountains. And this may be a bigger decal than one hex can handle. So I want to be able to throw down like some big old stuff like that. Or let's see, what's another? Maybe I want to have this big, huge range of infected mountains right here. And I just want to be like, boom, and that's put down, right? So I need to be able to define that. So I go over to my tile shapes, and here we do some funky math. I don't know if anyone, I'm not going to go into the math because it's boring. But anyway, here I go into some math to figure out, what kind of tile shape am I going to use for the multi-hex tiles. But for the moment, we're doing a single hex tile, so this doesn't matter, right? So now I need to say what is what, right? So in the game, we have to have a concept of terrain. These terrains are something that the player understands. So for instance, I may have a unit that does extra damage on when he's fighting in the woods, or does extra damage when he's fighting in a swamp, or maybe this guy has a movement bonus when he's in the tundra. And so I need to have like a set quantified list. I mean, I can't, and the player can't possibly be expected to keep track of all of these different terrains, right? This is, I don't know what this is. So somewhere it's got to have a little tag that says, you know what, maybe it's a forest that's the autumn forest, or maybe it's a pine forest, but a pine forest is a forest. And so now I can say, here are my basic kinds of land. So for those of you who are curious, what kind of, I'm sorry, wrong thing. No, right thing. So here's our basic kinds of land. Oh, it was the wrong thing. This is what I wanted to show you. Here in the terrain. So here are our basic terrain types that the player can understand. Now you'll notice, by the way, it has an ugly name. It's TER_city, TER_desert. Why do we do it like that, right? Obviously, it would be much prettier if I just called it desert or forest. Well, the reason for this is at some point in this game's life, it's going to be made into German. And when we make it into German, I want to be able to quickly say everything that we called a desert, call it whatever where I don't know the German word for desert, but there must be a word. Germans must say desert. So, what I'll do is I actually put together a localization file. And in fact, I can show you one of those if you're curious. Over here, this is our localization file. I'm not going to check it out because I'm not going to change anything. So in our localization file, you can see here is all of these things that, so for instance, right here is our TER_desert. And this is now translated as deserts in English, right? And later on, there'll be a column here and a column here and a column here for French and German and Spanish and Japanese and whatever. And so now, wherever something exists that says TER_desert, it will replace that with whatever language you want. And we do that for every single piece of text in the game. And the reason that we'd use the little underscores is, if I just said desert and I said replace desert with German, maybe somewhere in the game I have a piece of text that says we have to go to the desert, and it would look at that piece of text and it would say, that thing in the center of it where it says desert, that's desert, I'm supposed to replace that in German. And so it would say we need to go to the German word for desert, and that would be weird, right? And so what I do instead, no, I don't want to save that, is I always make sure there's an underscore, right? And the underscore, because we don't in any language use an underscore as part of our language, as long as the full word includes an underscore, it knows, this is like a special thing. This is a thing. So when it goes and search for places for stuff, it does that. So anyway, there's that thing. So now we've defined I want a forest. So that's what this, getting back to our autumn forest. Now we know that we want an autumn forest. Here's the forest object. So now I'm going to go over to my tiles and I'm going to say, I'm going to make a tile called forest fall, right? And that forest fall tile is going to use this forest designation. So I now know that when I place this special hex, which is a little fall foliage on a tile, it knows that that's a forest. As opposed, and you can see there's a mixed autumn and not autumn foliage. There's the forest hard, which is hardwood. By the way, we found out later that there's actually a there's somewhere there's a wood hard. Actually, this, I found an error. That should not be hardwood. That should actually just be hard. So we actually have a hex wood _ hard. And we found out because later on we put letter designations after them, A, B, C, D, and E. And we'll get to that. We actually had a hex called wood hard D, which I was like, the 12-year-old in me was like, anyway. So getting back to the forest and whatnot. So I've made a forest fall, right? I've said that it's a forest. I've said that I want the surface underneath it to be tile 005. And what the tile 005 is, if I go back to my decals and look, somewhere in here there's a... wait, it's not in decals, it's in tiles. If I go back to tiles here, and I go and look, there's a tile 005 ping somewhere. Wait, let me show this as images. View as medium icons. All right, cool. Here we go. Here's our tiles. So somewhere in here is a tile 005. There, that one. So I'm saying I want the base tile to be this thing. Sorry, Monica. I want the base tile to be this thing. And I want the... We'll get back to what else I want. But for right now, I know that I want the base tile to be that thing. So the next thing I want to do... Where was I? I'm so confused. So many windows. Okay, so now I've said I want tile 5 underneath. Forget this icon thing because we're not using that. And then I got some other stuff that I set over here that's not important. You don't care. So anyway, now I've said I've got a forest. I want that forest to be this. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to go build it. And for that, we have the tile editor, which is this thing right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm somewhere in here. I'm going to have you can see there's all of this other stuff. There's a hex autumn forest, hex forest, fall. There we go. Here's my hex forest fall, right? And so the next thing I want to do is I need to put my trees down on my fall forest. So let's go find my trees. Here's all the trees that we put in. Here's all those decals. And I can say, hey, I want to put some trees like that. Yay, look, trees. Let's see. I put some little trees like that. However I want to do it, right? Now you can see I've already done a bunch of these. Hex, what do we call this? Was hex forest, right? Hex forest. Fall. There we go. So hex forest fall. And you'll notice there's an A and a B and a C and a D and an E. And the reason for the A, B, C, D, and E is these are different versions of the same thing, which save us from that tiling problem. So when I put down fall forest, it'll just randomly pick A through whatever we got, I guess G, and say, I'm going to use that one, right? So you'll notice also there's this one called Forest Road A, right? And the road ones are, if I go back to my thing here, you'll notice, let's say I put this big forest down, you'll notice where the road is, it kind of cuts the forest away, right? Let's say I want to drive a little road through this pine forest here, right? When I drive that road through this pine forest, it's got to delete a bunch of trees. And so what I've done is I've actually created some special versions of these tiles which don't have trees where the roads go. And that way when I drive a road through, it says, hey, don't show forest pine A, show forest pine A road, which is the one where I have not put any pine trees where the road goes. It's a bit of a labor-intensive process, but that's how we get this really nice, pretty organic look. in other places, let's say I want to put a, by the way, note all the fancy new buildings. We'll talk about that in a minute. Let's say I want to put one of these. I think this is an inn or something like that. If I want to put an inn there, it automatically deletes the forest out of the way. And this is handled kind of in the same way. So now I can put down some of these. We'll get back to those in a minute. Back to my thing. So now I've got my little, where's my hex editor? I had a hex. That's not what I want. Oh, that's this. This is what I want. So here's my fall_A. So this is what I saved out as fall_A. That's it. So now I save that out. And when I do that, it all shows up in the editor. And when I go to the editor list, you can see here are all of the tiles that we've made. So this is all of the fall, forest_fall A, B, C, D, E, F, whatever. This is forest mix A, B, C, D, E, F. This is forest hard A, B, C, D, E, F. Forest pine A, B, C, D, E, F. Forest pine mix A, B, C, D, E, F, right? So if I were to grab this mixed forest pine, I can go lay pine forest all over my, let's delete these buildings real quick. And that's it. That's how we build it. And so what this does is it means that for the user, when you buy the game and you want to go build a map, the only step of this process that you have to worry about is, hey, I want some forest. I want a forest that looks like that. I want to put it here. And that's it. That's all you got to do. You're done, right? And that's really important to me. I mean, there's a lot of people who say we want to give you, access to the editor and stuff. But once you make that decision, and this is what we were talking about back when we made Legends of Kalasia, and people are like, oh, you should release your editor. Our editor for Kalasia didn't look anything like this, right? The editor itself is almost like it's its own little game. It's like a game within a game that we have to build, because we have to understand that the user is going to be using this, and the users are, they don't have the time and the energy. This isn't a job for them. This is a fun thing that they're doing for them. So we have to make sure that it's simple and easy for them to get in. Now, as a side bonus, when I build the game, I'll be damned if I don't use this editor, right? So I'm actually going to have a way nicer editor to build levels on this game than I ever had in Kalasia. And the spin-off value of that is I'm probably going to be able to build a lot more levels. We're going to spend a lot more time testing levels and stuff. So it's going to be a lot faster and easier to change levels than it was in Kalasia. So that, and that's going to make a real difference in the game, because we can actually spend a lot more time saying, oh, this level with too much forest isn't fun. Let's get rid of all this forest and let's put some, I really like it when we play with deserts. Let's put some more desert in this level. And, I think these wastes are cool. Let's get some more of these wastes in our level. Where's my waste? There's my waste. A little bit more of that in the game, because that's always cool, right? We can do a little bit more of this in the game than we were doing in Kalasia, because you can see how fast it is. To make that change in Kalasia that I just did in 20 seconds would have been, in the Kalasia level development model, me drawing something up, handing it to an artist, having an artist go draw it, having that exported in Photoshop, having those Photoshop layers built back in. What I just did right now to put that desert and that waste in there, that took me 20 seconds, that would probably have been 3 or 4 hours in Kalasia. And so that changes everything. It changes the speed at which we can develop. It changes the speed at which we can make changes. So there's that. And that's the end of the Monica moment, by the way. I think that's the bit that I want to clip, and we can put that up in our dev thing. And look, here's a how a bill becomes a law thing. So there's that. Now I want to go back, and I know you guys were asking some questions. I want to go back and back read the chat just a little bit and see if there were any questions. Yeah, exactly. It's not going to be 40 gigabytes just because we added 100 different trees. That's exactly the point. And you have to think about that kind of stuff. People are like, why is your game so big? A lot of times the games are big because they didn't architect it in a way that allowed them to be a little bit more efficient with what they did and how they used things. And so you have to think, the whole time you're building, you always have to think about how you're using assets and how much, because it's not just that you may have a small hard drive. It's when somebody sees a big, huge download, especially because remember, we get spoiled. I'm in Japan with I have a 1 gigabit connection in my house. I don't care what I download. It doesn't even matter to me. I'll download anything. But for a lot of our staff, for instance, that live in the Philippines, a 200 meg download, that's a commitment, right? And for a lot of people, that's money. That they only get. My father, who lives in Texas, he lives out in the country, and he's got some shitty Verizon plan. I think he only gets like 8 gig a month, and then after that, he's got to start paying extra. Which, by the way, come on, American infrastructure, that's crazy talk. But for him, downloading a 5 gig game, that's like adding an extra couple bucks to the price of the game. And so we have to think about that when we build stuff. Look at this big, beautiful. Doesn't that big, beautiful forest just, it feels so good to me now. I like that forest. And here's what I like. I spent some time this week I just want to show this off, right? So you can start with your little autumnal forest right here, which is really pretty. Here's your little autumnal forest. And then you're like, this little autumnal forest, it's going to get a little mixed in hardwood, maybe it's not all going to be, and maybe there's a little, let's build a little, I'm just so proud of this. It's coming along so well. Let's build a little valley. Let's see, put that there. Look, here's my little valley building. I'll put a little, little something there. And then up this valley, let's say that this is where it all becomes into these this is hardwood valley, and then maybe these hardwoods kind of slowly turn into pine woods. You got little transition tiles there, and then now it turns into pine, and maybe as you go up to here, maybe there's a little bit of a snowy pine. Let's see, I have some snow pine woods. I've got some snow pine forest, which is this one here. So yeah, this is where the snow line is right there, and then maybe down here where the piney woods turn into less forest and more just kind of broken woods. We can kind of have it like that. And then those broken woods are going to turn into some grasslands down here. See, look, it looks pretty sweet, no? Like I'm pretty proud of how this is coming out. That looks pretty nice. You're going to be able to build some nice looking stuff with that. So anyway, yeah, that's that. What other questions did we have from the chat? That is a nice word for waste, isn't it? I didn't know that word existed. Were there any other questions? I named it hard D. I did. I didn't mean to do that. I found it the other. How many buildings are there going to be in the game? That's a good question. I don't know yet, but that opens up a fun new topic. And this starts another Monica moment. Here's another Monica moment for you, Monica. So another thing that we did last week is we've been quietly in the background working on some concepts for some buildings. And I think one thing that people misunderstand when they see game development is they think that like somewhere there's like some big huge GDD and the GDD explains every single thing about the game, and before you start anything you know exactly what's going to be in the game and how it's going to work. Games aren't built like that, right? What actually happens when you build a game is you go through the process of kind of building up prototypes and making things start to work, and then you put in some data and you say, now that I've got this sort of structure for the data to be in, how do I want it to play? So, okay, I came up with this idea to have structures. What structures do we want? And you put in some test structures, and sometimes they're fun and sometimes they're not. I mean, that's the hard part about game development is it's not like we're building bridges. If I were an architect building a bridge, somebody would say, I need this bridge to go from here to there. It's got to carry this much weight. And I'd kind of make some sketches and say, well, that's kind of what I think it's going to look like. And everybody would look at it and go, yeah, we'll build that. And you build that, and as long as it doesn't fall down and it carries the weight that it's supposed to, everyone's happy. But games have, the problem of being entertainment. And just like a song or a painting or anything else, there's an artistic part to it of you get it out and you show it to people and you say, is this good? Is this fun? And it's very difficult to plan fun from the very beginning and know, okay, this is definitely going to be fun. I wish I were a developer and I could write a design doc and be like, if you just made it exactly like this, I promise you it'll be fun. Games don't work like that. You have to kind of prototype them up and play with it and go, this is not as fun as I thought it would be. And so we put in the idea of structures, and the way structures work, here's some structures up here. Here's a bunch of placeholder structures. So let's put in, for the moment, let's put in this little windmill, right? And so the way structures work is when I have a character, a unit, that unit can go to a structure, and when they sit on that structure, that unit will take on new properties based on the structure that he's on. So, for instance, actually, let's not use that. Let's use a different structure. Let's use, where's my towers? Most of my structures seem to be missing from this list. There were a lot more structures before, I swear. Somewhere there used to be a tower. Where's my tower? I don't see any towers. Um, Here's a tower. That'll work. So I'll put that tower in for right now. I believe this is an artillery tower. I can't remember. So this artillery tower, when I go into the artillery tower, I will take on the property of being able to use artillery. And so maybe I send my grenadiers in there. My grenadiers have their own abilities. I think the grenadiers in this game ignore fortification bonuses when attacking, for instance. But when the grenadier goes into the artillery tower, that grenadier is now in an artillery tower, and they can use it kind of in the same way that if you were playing like a first-person shooter and you jumped into a vehicle, suddenly you could use that vehicle. Your unit can now use this tower and use the abilities of that tower, which include maybe being able to shoot artillery, maybe if it's a healing building, being able to heal people, blah-de-blah-de-blah, something like that. So immediately on jumping into the building, you take on these new powers. And so the question is, which buildings do we want? Which powers do we want? And how does it work? I got a bunch of ideas, and we put a big list together, and I had the artists go and do me some rough sketches just to kind of see what it would all look like. And here's a bunch of rough sketches of some of the buildings that we are planning on having in the game. Here, for instance, there's a kobold race, and the kobold race gets to have their big stone heads. And you'll notice, by the way, the art isn't done yet. This is still, placeholder, half done, not even colored art. And the reason we did it like that is I don't want to bother coloring it and putting all the time and energy into finishing it until I know that I actually want it. Now, right now, I think the big stone heads are a cool idea. There's some powers, I forget, it's all on a list somewhere, but there's some powers that I want to give to the big stone heads. I don't know if that's fun or not. So what I wanted to do was just throw a bunch of stuff in the game, and what we're going to be doing over the next week is putting a bunch of these buildings in the game, testing them, giving powers to them, seeing if they're fun, and if they are fun, then I'll go back to the artists and be like, yep, that thing's cool. Definitely we want to put that thing in the game, make that happen. So that thing is one of the things we're going to be doing over the next week. But you can kind of see we've got some interesting stuff coming up. And one of the things that I wanted to do in the game is I wanted to give the maps a real sense of place and to have that place be tied back to our lore. So you'll notice there's kind of different types of buildings. So here's a great example. Here's this kind of little log cabin, right? That's a huge log cabin. I'm going to make that smaller. So I've got this huge log cabin. You'll notice we have to play with scale on some of this stuff. So this ginormous log cabin, it's a little bit weird for a fantasy object, because you don't really think of log cabins as being a fantasy thing. But when we started putting our lore together and we started having musketeers and we started having grenadiers and we had frigates and all of this sort of slightly more modern stuff, I got to thinking about, well, if we're setting our fashion and we're setting our weaponry and we're setting our technology around the 1700s, well, wouldn't the buildings be something kind of like what was built in the 1700s? And in the 1700s, they were making log cabins. That's what colonists who went to America built. They built log cabins that looked like this. And so I wanted to start having the structures, and because, if I were to just show you this, right? I'm just going to show you some roads in a forest, and I were to say, well, what time is this? Is this the 1700s? Is this the 1300s? Is this barbarians and Vikings? You don't know. But once I put a structure down, suddenly it starts taking a life of, well, this is a structure that exists in this time period. Suddenly it begins to take on culture once you put human objects in it. And so I wanted the structures not just to show the time period, but to show the different races and the different cultures. We've got orcs in our game. We've got elves in our game. We've got these colonial people from overseas. We've got infected undead people. We've got a bunch of things that we're going to be talking about later that are in the game. And I wanted the maps to reflect, this is a place where orcs live, and it's got orc units and that sort of thing. Hang in there, dwarf. Hang in there. It's going to be cool. The elves are good. These are good elves. You're going to like these elves. Also not sorry. Yeah, so there's that thing. And that Monica moment's over. So yeah, other questions that we had from the peoples. Why Excel? Why not a database? So why do we use Excel? We have used Excel in this studio since the beginning of this studio, and part of it is I have an MBA, and so I know how to use Excel really, really well. That's like what MBAs do. And so for me, that was a very natural tool. But to be honest, let's go back to an Excel file. Once we start getting to more complicated Excel things, let's say my minions. Here's a list of all of my minions and the things that minions do, right? So here's a working list of a whole bunch of units that'll be in the game. Here's what race they are, what faction they belong to, how much attack they do, how many hit points they have, how many moves they have, blah, blah, blah. There's a whole lot of data here. Let's say I want to very quickly just go in and say, I think everybody needs to have twice as many hit points, right? I can write an Excel function where I can take all 200 units and give them all 3 extra hit points or something like that in literally 20, 30 seconds, right? For me to get in and make mass changes to an Excel sheet very, very quickly, it's very, very easy and very quick to do. If I want to do something like search the entire sheet, including all of the different tabs, and change every single instance of the word human to elf, because I want to make all my human units elf units or something like that, I can do it like that. And so there's just, I mean, people have been using Excel for, Excel-y type things for a really long time. So it's just a really, really robust tool. And it's a tool that you can grab and get into very easy. It never crashes. It never has any trouble. So it also allows us to do a lot of, as Jalstrom says, it allows us to. Is that JD? I didn't know. Okay, that's JD. It allows us to write a bunch of macros and stuff like that. So we can have exports that do certain things. In fact, you can actually even see over here, we have a whole export path. So everyone who's working on the project, you say, I want to do this thing, I want to export my data, and bam, it exports all of this stuff into, as you can see right here, a number of Lua files. And that's what the game actually uses. The game doesn't use an Excel file. It's not a very good data structure in itself. But Excel, because it has the function to do it, you can say, hey, just squirt out a bunch of Lua files, and that's a file that our coders can use very efficiently. So that's going to make cheap fodder units the only thing people will put in structures. Actually, that's a good point, and it's kind of what I want. Is I like again, getting back to the maps. When we put the maps together, and this is something I wanted to really do for this game that I think we didn't do as well in Kalasia. If you think about Kalasia, all of the spots were pretty much the same. It was very difficult to make serious tactical decisions about this is a key spot, right? But let's say, for instance, I throw down some mountains. Bam! Here I don't care that these are a little ugly right now. Here's some mountains. Here's some more mountains. Here's some more mountains. Here's some more mountains. So now I've made this kind of series of mountain passes, right? And let's say in this series of mountain passes, I put one of these artillery towers. Where's an artillery tower? I swear, so many things going on in my head. Where's my artillery tower? There's something weird going on. It was here a minute ago, I swear. Huh. Where'd it go? Oh, no, that's not. It's disappeared. That's weird. Anyway, let's pretend this is something important, right? Let's say I put a couple of these here and here and here, and these things do something bad. Maybe that's a thing that allows me to have lightning bolts that fly around, right? One thing that a smart player might do is run a couple guys up into this valley and take those points and do something with those points. And now that becomes a very strategic thing that I have to think about. How do I deal with this guy who's taken this power point in this game? Well, maybe I have to walk my units around up in this valley. Maybe I have to walk come down here. Maybe I need to get what if there's let's see if I got some water. What if, for instance, that wasn't a mountain, but this was all water right here. And I thought, okay, let's see, let me make myself a little tactical position here. Let's have a little road that goes through there. All right, so now I could go on this road right there past that guy, to get to here, if I needed to get up to there, let's say there was a castle. Here, we'll put a little desert up there. Excuse my quick building. I'm trying to make my point quickly. So let's say there's this big cathedral up there, and I'm going to go take over that cathedral. And there's some point right here that's got a guard tower and artillery tower, and I'm like, I can't go past that because this guy's going to whip my ass. Instead, I might get on a flying unit and take my flying unit over the water, or maybe I'd use an aquatic unit to get across the water and avoid that tower. So now there's a lot more sort of interesting tactical decisions that you can make. So there, that's kind of that. Yeah. So you put our archer in it; it gains range damage. We've got stuff like that in the game. So there's a bunch of stuff like that. For instance, the archery tower doesn't necessarily make you an archer. Some towers are, if you put an archer in this tower, then that will give him increased range or increased sight. For instance, the mage tower. The mage tower doesn't make you a mage. The mage tower actually means a mage that gets into this tower will have increased mana, and he'll have increased range for his magely abilities. So there might be, for instance, a mage tower here in this valley, and one of the things a smart player would do would be like, I need to get a mage in that tower. And now you're like, oh, I got to get that mage out of that tower. And now this is what I wanted to create with all of this is the sense of mid-range goals. When you have a big strategy game like this, there's always the big goal. I have to take over all the land. I have to take over all the cities. I have to go do this thing. You understand your long-range goals, but do you understand your short-range goals? Because if it's all long-range goals, the game gets boring because you're like, this is taking forever and I haven't achieved anything. I haven't done anything. In Kalasia, the short range, the midterm goals were the kingdoms. That's why we actually put the kingdoms in, was now I could achieve something in a reasonable amount of time. I would go take over this kingdom, and when I took over this kingdom, I could have that little happy sense of, aha, I did something. I took over a kingdom. But with this game, because we don't have the kingdoms, what is my mid-range goal? My mid-range goal now is this whole set of strategic objectives of get a mage in that tower. And also, it creates a lot of fun stuff for us to do in campaign mode when we're making scripted campaigns that actually have stories and stuff. It may be the case that this story starts with the head mage Hooty-Hoo is in the tower here, and, he's taken up, head high mage Hoop-de-Hoop is in the windmill there in the Valley of the Sun, and you have to take him out. And now I've got a nice short-term goal that would be interesting. And I make the high mage Hoop-de-Hoop relatively powerful. And maybe the high mage Hoop-de-Hoop has a special ability that he can create little minions that come after me. And now I've got to go defeat his minions and get the mage out of the mage Hoop-de-Hoop out of the windmill. Now that's a nice short-term goal for a campaign mission. And it's something we didn't have a lot to play with in Kalasia, and it's something that we kind of needed. So there we go. Let's see if there's any questions real quick. You and I would be more. JD loves him some elves. The only good elves are wood elves that stay in the forest and stop playing dress up. Well, I have bad news for you. Our elves totally dress up. I don't know if you've seen our elves with a chainsaw, but our elves are very nattily dressed. And it's actually it's a fun thing I wanted to talk about. I was at PAX, and it was PAX San Antonio, the one I went to, and Fluffy and Mocha and them were there. And I was seeing all these people dressed up in costumes. And I thought to myself, I want to make characters in my game that people want to dress up as. I want to make something really interesting. And I thought about, especially like the JRPGs. As much as I hate JRPGs, I think there's a lot of fun to be had in the kind of costumes that come from those. Or like a Final Fantasy. Like, people love the Final Fantasy costumes with they're really over the top and stuff. So I wanted a bunch of our characters in the game to have these sort of fun, frivolous fashions. And the 1700s is a great time for that. I mean, it's like if you ever watched an Adam Ant video, you're like, oh, that's awesome. So I think our Adam Ant fans will enjoy our costumes. So hopefully the game becomes hugely popular, and I go to PAX and there's a bunch of people dressed in kick-ass, awesome costumes. That would be cool. I would love that. All right, more questions. How many damage types are there? Asks Dwarviers. There's actually only one damage type in the game. This is, this gets into the how much complexity do you want versus how fast do you want the game to go. And while I think it's kind of fun in single player games to have really, really complex decisions like this, like, okay, I'm going to use this wizard who uses fire damage because I'm going against the wizard who's the wizard of the ice or whatever. We still want this to be a relatively quick multiplayer game. And we want these decisions that people are making to go relatively quick. So I wanted to keep it relatively simple. For those who have not seen, we have actually some new UI art. Let me see if I can go find that real quick. Hang on a sec. I have to go let me go somewhere. We have really pretty new UI art, and I wanted to show you our new thing. I want to show you my thing. Gonna whip it right out. Where are we? Here we go. Main menu. Wait, where's the in-game art? Man, I don't have it. Anyway, Monica, you're listening. Can you go find the latest version of the thing and give it to me in Hip Chat, and I'll show that here. I can't find it, and it's bugging me. I wanna show my art, and I don't have it. But anyway, there's only one damage type. That's a thing. I've lost track of my chats and stuff. Where is my? Well, no, I want my thing. I'm so confused. Wait, there. Okay, I'm back. Another question. What kind of neutral creeps faction will we be looking at? Obviously can't be like Kalasia. Will we have wandering or stationary neutral monsters? But that still guard neutral buildings. Are non-faction neutral buildings planned? Yes, and I don't know yet. Obviously, we do want to have neutral stuff in there. There will be neutral buildings, so that's a thing that will exist. There will be neutral units that you can kill. I can place those right now, so that's a thing that will be in the game, but I haven't gotten around to figuring it out yet. So there's the answers to that. Will the neutral units move around? I don't know yet, and it's a conversation that we need to have. We just haven't gotten to it yet, to be honest. For those of you who are wondering, this is not alcoholic. This is green tea. This is my fancy little. You can see there the little Japanese writing on the mug. This is the local sushi restaurant. They gave me this. They're very nice people. So if you ever happen to be in my part of Yokohama, Yoshino Sushi, it's a very nice place. All right, wait. Here we go. Karen has found for me the new in-game UI, which I wanted to show you kids. Which is slowly loading right now in the background. Okay. It's stupid to have a caveman with a rocket launcher. If I could have a caveman with a rocket launcher, I'd be happy. Well, that's a strange desire, but I support you. All right, here we go. Look, it's the new in-game UI that we have built. This is our working version. We may make some changes to it later, but this is what I want to get up and running. You can see here. Wait. Starting right now, it's another Monica moment. Monica, this moment is for you. All right, so another thing that we did this week is Karen went and looked at our in-game user interface, and we've made some adjustments to the in-game user interface. We also made some adjustments to the in-game chat, and Karen, if you can pull up that image for me as well, I'll show that as well. You can see here on screen, this is the new user interface. We've got over here on the left, this is your, what do we call that? Your regimental colors. That's what that's called. That's bigger than I want it to be. So your regimental colors over here on the left, you'll actually, as you make each, down here in the bottom right-hand corner, this is your regiment. This is your set of units that you've decided to bring into this game. And what you do before you start any game is you select which, right now we're thinking 10, we just select which 10 units you're going to bring into the game, and that could be any 10 units that come from different factions. So let's say I decided to bring units from, I think we'd let you have up to 3 factions. So I want to bring Red Keep and Palava and Ivoria type units into the game. So now I think there's about 10 units from each one of those factions. So I've got about 30 units to choose from. Out of those 30 units, I cull a subset of 10. These are the 10 units from those factions I want to bring. And these are the only 10 units you can summon during the game. When you put that together, you can save that out. That thing's called a regiment. And that regiment that you save, you'll actually assign it its own regimental colors, which are these things up here on the left. So you'll actually be able to make your own little flag for each regiment. And so now when you start the game and other people look at you, they'll see your regimental colors and they can get a little bit of information about which factions are you hiring from and that sort of thing. So across the left here, you see here's our chat button. I can chat with different people. I can look at other user scores and user information in the game. Not their user, but I can see the in-game information for that player. I also can get some information. I can show the hexes on the hexes. I can get my settings menu up. Over here on the right, kind of like Kalesia, here's how many turns you got left in the game. Here's a big end turn button that turns green when it's time for you to end your turn when you've moved all your units. I've added a little thing up here, and this is your I want to go from unit to unit to see which units I've moved and which units I haven't moved yet. So let's say I've got 6 units on the screen that I haven't moved yet. This will say 6, and I can click this and it'll stop that. I click this and it moves from unit to unit and says these are the things that you've not moved yet, and you can move all of them. As I move my units, that number will go down to 0. When that hits 0, the end turn button turns green. So now there's a very clear way for you to know, all right, I moved all my stuff, I did everything I'm supposed to do, now end my turn. Up here in the right, you see here are my control points, my mana and my gold. Like we talked about in the last session, mana and gold have become a capped resource that refreshes totally every turn. So if you have 15 resource building or 15 gold building buildings and whatnot, and 8 mana building resources and whatnot, every turn you'll get 15 and 8. If you don't use the 15 and 8, then it goes away and it gets replaced next turn. Kind of the same way Hearthstone or Magic the Gathering works, in terms of this is what you get to use for your resources this turn. If you don't use them, they go away and they get replenished next turn. So this tells you how much do you have, how much have you used on your turn right now, and when that gets down to 0, you can't use anymore. Down here, this is my regiment. Click on these guys, click on the screen where I want to make them go. On the bottom left-hand corner, here you can see this is my active unit. This is what I'm interacting with right now, with their attack strength and their hit points, and their move is the little green hex at the bottom. Then you see along the right-hand side here, these are the powers that they have. Excuse this extremely bright placeholder art. We'll make that better in the future. But you can see these are, if this unit has this, and this spell, and I want to know what does that spell do, and I want to cast it, I click there. That gives me the definition of what it does right here with the cost of how much it costs to use it. Click on there, make it happen. You can see along the top, maybe they've got some spells or things that are influencing them. Maybe they were given a special buff, or they've got a curse or something like that that's been cast on them. I can click those right here and it'll tell me here what that thing is and what's going on. So that's that information. And that's it. That's pretty much what the game looks like. I'm pretty happy with it. It's pretty small. It keeps out of your way, lets you see most of the screen. We had a chat thing I was going to show you, but I don't know where it went. Anyway, question. Is mana used for summoning units, buildings, and using spells? Do unit abilities cost mana gold? I think casters would require mana for their spells. You are absolutely right. So everything can cost or create something, right? So to get a wizard, you're going to have to use a lot of mana and a little bit of gold. To get, a guy with a bunch of cannons, you're going to have to use a lot of gold and probably not very much mana. In general, summoning standard units is a gold thing. Bringing wizards onto the screen or magical creatures is a mana thing. Generally, using these powers is largely a mana-based thing. So if I've got a wizard and he's got a fireball spell, yeah, it's going to cost you mana to use that fireball spell. But some of the more mundane activities will cost gold. So let's say I've got archers. Maybe and again, this all needs to be balanced. But maybe every time I use my archer special ability of shooting arrows, I use a very small amount of resources, because he's shooting arrows and I got to get him more arrows and whatnot. So yeah, the other thing that you can do is some of the units can also provide mana or provide resources. So for instance, there's one unit that we're going to put in the It's like a trading caravan. I haven't figured out what to call it yet, but it's traders. And the not traders like bad people, but traders. Is it my Texas accent that I can't say, like traders who are the people who betray their country and traders who are people who trade things back and forth? Does that really sound exactly the same thing? I don't know. Anyway, I think it's my Texas accent. Anyway, they will actually provide you. You build them and you put them, say, in your city. They'll actually multiply the amount of gold that cities make and that sort of thing. There may be some units that if you go put them in special places, like this unit in a forest will give you extra mana or something like that. The other thing is these control points. Control points is it's our version of PopCap from Kalasia. This is your how many people can you have on screen at any given point. And this is actually going to be largely determined by units. So if I've got a hero, say Olivia, who's the hero of the game, she's the main character for the campaign. She's the head hero of the Ruma faction. She comes with a certain number of control points. So if I have her out on the screen moving around, I can control more units. But she's kind of like kind of like in chess, like a king, where it's like I have to kind of protect her, because if I lose her, I'm going to lose a lot of control points, and I'm not going to be able to summon very many more units until I get another one of her back on the screen. So some of these will have, not all of those heroes will definitely be the best guy to put out in your front lines and fight. So for instance, one hero that I have planned is pretty much designed to hang out back in your city, increase your production in your city, and give you some control points. And that's a person that somebody may want to sneak a stealth unit around and attack and do that kind of thing. Another question, is gold and mana the only resources? So those three things you see right here, gold, mana, and control, those are the only three sort of things that you have to think about in the game. And again, this is, we could have done I think people who see a game, it's usually one of their first inclinations to say, wow, I could add all this stuff. You could have wood, and you could have steel, and you could have food, and you could have units that use wood, and units that use... And in big, long, single-player games, sometimes that sort of thing makes sense because people have the time to think about all of that. But in a game where I've got 6 players who are all waiting for everyone to take their turn, you really don't want somebody thinking like, I gotta build this farm which only makes food, and I have to, like, that can get a little bit, it can get a bit much, to be quite honest. And I wanted to kind of keep it more straightforward and more simple, so that you're making big important decisions instead of lots of little tiny decisions. So each faction has a leader that you pick. Is that how you'll balance versatility versus speciality? If you go with the orc leader, their bonuses apply more to orc units. Exactly. So each of the leaders of the different factions will be sort of focused in a different way. And because you're being able to choose from 3 factions to build your regiment, you could have up to 3 leaders in your regiment down here. But if that's leader 1, if that's leader 1, 2, and 3 right here, well, obviously I've only got this many spots for, and so it's kind of the same as in a trading card game, where you have to kind of think about how many of these big legendary type units do you want to have? How many of these kind of fodder units do you want to have? What kind of synergies do I want to build between this leader and the kind of units they have? So for instance, maybe this leader is a leader that has a lot of great buffs for beasts. And there's a lot of beasts in the game, so maybe I want to do that and then have down here a bunch of apes and other beast units, because I've got this wizard who's my wizard leader who I can buff up all these beasts, and that's one way to play. Whereas I might have another leader where I'm like, this is a guy that has a bunch of healing abilities, and here's some units that have hit points that lead me to want to have them go out and get killed and healed over and over again and make them big chunky units. So there's a lot of that kind of synergy type stuff that we want to have in the game and have people thinking about when they're playing the game. So the leaders are kind of a way for us to put a flavor onto your regiment. Now other people, they may say, you know what, I only want 2 leaders because I got this plan where I want to have, a whole bunch of these kind of units out, and I only need these 2 leaders to do that. However you want to play it. The idea, and this is very much from my experience in Kalasia, I think we drove the player too hard in Kalasia in telling him, this is how you play the Revenant, this is how you play the Dwarves. I don't want to do that in this game. I don't want to make it so obviously clear that you have to play one faction this way or you have to play another faction another way. I want people to be able to come up with those kind of plans themselves because that's fun. All right, question. How to win a game? By capturing their city or killing enemy main heroes and characters? So there's two answers to that question. One, in the campaigns, there will be victory conditions based on how we run the campaign. So this may be a campaign where you have to survive for this amount of time, or you have to get the wizard out of the windmill in the upper right-hand corner of the map, or whatever. They're story-based goals, so to speak. In multiplayer, right now we're discussing this, and I think this is going to come out of playtesting a little bit more. Obviously, we'll have, hey, I want to play a multiplayer game, and I wanted my multiplayer game to, whoa, I totally lost, wow, head gone, lost my train of thought. There's so many windows right here, right now. I'll start again. So, how to win the game. In campaign mode, here, wait, this is a Monica moment. Here, I'll Monica moment this. So there's a couple ways that you can win the game. In campaign mode, there are specific campaign victories based on the story and the lore and what's going on in this particular campaign. So it may be that you're killing this wizard up in the corner, or it may be that you're taking over this particular building, or maybe you're surviving for X number of turns, or maybe you're building this number of units, or maybe you're collecting this much gold. There's all kinds of things we can do with that. Now, on multiplayer, we're actually, one of the things I think we missed out on Kalasia was letting people set up fun-filled games with specific fun victory conditions. And so we're going to look at some tools for when I start my multiplayer game. Maybe we can have like a capture the flag type gameplay, or maybe we can have a first one to so many gold gameplay, so that we can actually have the players come up with sort of different feels for their games. This is something that I would like to do, but I'm not committing to that yet. Not because I don't think we can do it, but because I'm not sure if it's fun or not yet. And so we want to get in, we want to put some of those tools in place. This is something that we'll be doing a little bit further down the road. The basic victory condition in multiplayer obviously is kill all of your enemies and take all of their villages so that they can't build anymore. You have to actually have a city to build a village in. And so if I've taken all of your cities and killed all of your units, then obviously you're knocked out of the game. I think we'll also have a victory point win. I just noticed our UI does not have any victory points. We probably need to add that. Hey, Karen, we need to add victory points to our UI. But there's probably also going to be a victory point win, so we will have that as well. And I'd like to do some of the sort of more fun classic modes, like a King of the Hill mode or a Capture the Flag mode or something like that. I would love to do stuff like that, but that's some stuff that we need to get in and test. And that's, to be brutally honest, we're here, and that's like here, and we got a couple steps to take before we can get there. That's that Monica moment, done and over. So that's what I had for the, let's see, some people like me, awful people like Koa, want to use their preferred race as much as possible. So this is actually something I've thought about. It's one of the reasons why we have two different concepts. We have factions and we have races, and they're not the same. And you'll notice when you start talking about factions, there's not the elf faction or the kobold faction. It doesn't work like that. Now, the way the lore works, all right, wait, I'm going to stop. I'm going to do that again because this is a good Monica moment. So Monica moment starting right now. So one of the big decisions that we made in the game was to divide factions from races and not have them be the same thing. And the reason that we wanted to do this was to make sure that you could play it either way, right? If we said that the factions and the races were the same thing, and we said like, okay, this is the elf faction and the orc faction, then you would say, okay, I'm going to play the orcs and the elves and the kobolds, and that would, or I'm going to play only orcs, and that's not as exciting a choice as, let's say we have this faction which is the people of Red Keep, and we have a lore that goes with Red Keep, and Red Keep is this city on the coast that the colonists have built, and it was the colonists from Portella, which is a human kingdom, who had befriended the local elves, and the humans and the elves had built this city together. And the human and elf city, they had actually, this is one of the big cities that builds constructs. And so this one faction of Red Keep, which has some sort of historical lore behind it. This city is a place that may have elves, it may have humans, it may have constructs, and so you can summon all of those things from that area. Where I might say somewhere else in Ivoria, Ivoria is, and these are actually two things that are real in the game. I'm not making these up. These are actually in the lore. In Ivoria is a big, huge jungle area, and in this big, huge jungle area, there's a head wizard, and the head wizard has huge powers over animals and beasts. And so, sure, there's humans there, there's some elves there, the elves that have gone to be part of the Ivorian wizards, but there's also beasts there. So there's kind of a flavor. If you like beasts, Ivoria is probably something you might be interested in dealing with. But maybe there's some beasts over in there's another faction, Teresia, which is a big area of farms and things. That area also has some beasts. So maybe I want to bring Teresia, maybe I want to bring Ivoria. So kind of there's this feeling of being involved in the lore and being involved in the history of the game and trying to understand all of that. So I think that's more interesting. I think it allows us to delve more into the lore of the game. And it also allows us to mix and match things a lot better instead of just saying, I want to play the dwarves. I think that's a very... I know some people are going to say, but dude, I just want to play the dwarves. And if that's the case, then you may say, okay, well, these are the three factions that I really like that have great dwarf units. And so I'm going to play, but I don't want it to be, I like the dwarves, so I always have to play this faction because that's the dwarf faction. For me, that's a boring choice. And I think we can be more interesting than that. And you can see this actually here. I'll show you back in our data. And again, don't hold me to any of this because we're still figuring out what units we have, what units we're not going to have. But here you can kind of see a unit list. This red area here, this is Red Keep, where we have pyromancers and dragoons and elven. And you can see here we have humans, we have elves. Here in Ivoria, you can see we have humans, we have beasts, we have elves, we even have a Fae unit. The Fae are our sort of wild creatures from the woods. Here you can see this area here is Silverwood, which is a sort of an elven kingdom in the woods, and obviously the elven kingdom has a lot of elves and a lot of Fae. And so as we scroll down, and I'm not going to because I don't want to give away all of our secrets, if I were to scroll down, you would see that each faction has different mixes of different humans. So yeah, there's a thing. And we will have lots of different races. We have orcs, we have kobolds, we have elves. We may or may not have dwarves. I'm not going to commit to that just because I think it's funny. Yeah, so there's that. There's that Monica moment over. So have elves infected every faction? Actually, I will talk a little bit about the lore. And while I talk about the lore, I will show you some of my favorite, look at this. The infection spreads. All right, that's kind of cool. I'll never make that noise again, by the way. I apologize for that noise. Nobody really wanted that. Here, let's put one of my big infected mountains right here in the center. Gwa! Look at my land of infection. So what is this infection that Chris keeps talking about? The infection is a deep part of the lore where the story goes that the orcs are responsible for the infection, not the elves. The orcs were losing in the Great War back in the past, and in this Great War, they were getting destroyed, and they went to the god of death, and they prayed to the god of death, and they said, "Please send us a power that will help us defeat these people who are destroying the Orcish race." And the god of death, when I thought of the god of death, I thought, when you see a dead body, what happens? The first thing that happens with a dead body is it gets covered with fungus and lichen and mushrooms. And I thought of mushrooms and fungus as this thing that feeds on death. And I thought, what better sort of metaphor for a god of death than fungus, right? And so I said, all right, the god of death has given this particular, and it wasn't all the orcs, it was a small faction of the orcs, it was a small group of orc shamans that did this thing. They said, all right, you want power over death, we'll give you power over death. Boom. And so suddenly they had this power to, when something died, to fill them with this infectious fungal tissue that takes them over. And so there's Walking Dead, and the Walking Dead have like mushrooms coming out of their eyes, and they're covered in fungus. And it doesn't just affect the animals, it affects everything, because mushrooms grow out of plants and stuff like that. And so these forests and the beautiful lands of Kothia suddenly got taken over by these massive fungal growths, these spore forests and that sort of thing, right? Now, not all the orcs were cool with this, right? And in fact, some of the orcs were like, dude, what have you done? This is not on, right? And so there's another faction of the orcs who turned and they went to the sun god and they said, we aren't part of any of this. And there's actually a whole different orcish faction of anti-death orcs who are the sun god orcs, and they became fervent supporters of the sun god, and they have, orcish sun god paladins, and they live in the plains and they live in the deserts, and there's a whole story there that goes with that as well. So the reason I tell this story is because I wanted to keep our world not just, this is how orcs feel, this is how elves feel. It's not as simple as that. There's orcs that feel this way, and they have allies. And so, for instance, there's another group of orcs, the Longtooth orcs, which live up in the mountains, and they were a group of sort of orcish refugees that gathered with a group of goblins, and these orcs and goblins kind of banded together, went up into the hills and said, screw all this, we're gonna start our own community up here. And they're sort of a very defensive, very standoffish, sort of almost Nepalese kind of, we're here in the mountains, keep out of our mountains and we're cool, that kind of group of people. And so the factions aren't racially based. So there's the question, is there a fungal faction? No, there's not a fungal faction, but there are factions that use the fungus, right? There are, for instance, there's the Mugroot faction, which is a group of these death-worshipping orcs and a bunch of their fungal friends and some of the death wizards that can make more fungus people, and they live deep in one of these fungal forests. So yeah, if you like fungus, you better, there's going to be some orcs involved, because the lore is that the orcs themselves brought the infection to this land, and that infection is part of the reason why the humans said, we're out, and actually deserted this land and moved on to another place. So there you go. By the way, all of these names, hang in there. Things will get renamed as we move forward. But I like I love the idea of the orcs and this group of orcish shamans and the orcish death god. I think there's a lot of fun. There's a lot of fun in that. So all that's going to be kept. That's the end of that Monica moment, by the way. Is Chris still talking? Yes. Hey, Paj, good to see you here. I have a goal, and my goal is I want to get one of these stupid affiliates. I want to be an affiliate. Hang on. And to do that, I need to talk. I need to have a little bit more. I need to have a little bit more uptime. And what are we at now? I'm at like an hour and a half at this point. So I gotta go at least a solid hour and a half. Were there Gork and Mork are more fun? All right, wait. Bleakseek had a question. Is there going to be a Frost Knight faction or something to do with snow biomes? Well, let me start answering your question with this. Will there be snow? Hell yeah, look at all my snow. Let's see, I've got some tundra here too. Let me get my tundra out. Let me whip out my tundra. Look, here's some tundra. I need to get some like little forlorn trees and stuff on my tundra. We just today got some more of decals in and stuff. Yeah, there will be a ice and snow part of the game. I haven't entirely figured out what factions will be there. The Longtooth faction, which is the orcs and goblins of the mountains, they will be a frost and snowy kind of faction. But I don't know if there'll be a Frost Knight faction, so to speak. I hadn't thought of one yet. They don't exist in the lore right yet. But to be brutally honest, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't exist in the lore right now. So just because it's not there yet doesn't mean it's not ever going to be there. I'm certainly taking suggestions and thoughts on people who have other things that they want. I'm certainly happy to do that. Truth, to make affiliate, you have to have like 6 hours in a month. It's so easy. Yeah, 6 hours in a month sounds easy. I don't have 6 hours last month. And you have to be like, okay, so if I'm only doing a stream once a week, and that stream is an hour long, that's 4 hours. That doesn't even get me my 6 hours. So I got to do at least an hour and a half every one of these shows. And you know what? Some of it's just going to be like, I'm going to turn on my stream at 11 and I'm going to start talking at like 11:20. I think I'm going to do some of that. I think I'm going to play some of that. All right, so what else we got in the chat? I can say that dwarves make for good frost snow factions. This is true. This is actually true. Not making any promises, but I am saying that it does exist. So, I don't know, like, okay, Dwarfurious is not allowed to answer this question. How do the rest of you feel about dwarves? Like, the thing is, like, I love orcs, and we didn't really give orcs a lot of fair shake in Kalasia. I'm not a big fan of elves, to be quite honest. I don't hate them, but I don't love them. But again, I think they didn't get a fair shake in Kalasia, so I thought we'd put them in this game. Does everybody, like, I feel sometimes when you make one of these games, they're like, okay, you got it. It's almost like a check menu. You got to be like, well, I got orcs, I got dwarves, I got elves, I got, like, sometimes I almost feel like it's like, can't we just not have one of these? Can we just can you make a fantasy game and not have orcs? Like, is that allowed anymore? I don't know. Okay, so I'd be curious your thoughts on that. Share your thoughts. I can confidently say elves are in 10 times more game than dwarves. And if anyone would know, it is Dwarfurious. For those of you who don't know, Dwarfurious actually has a thing on Steam where he has reviewed every game he can find with dwarves. He's got like a dwarfometer for all of his games. So if anybody's been out there looking for dwarfs knows. All right, so another question I missed. Are those units going to be unlocked when I play the game for the first time, or do I need to first unlock it by leveling up or completing different things or opening packs like in Hearthstone? All right, so let me talk about how we're thinking about doing our monetization. That's a very good question, and in fact, that should begin. Actually, hang on a sec. I'm going to be back in like 1 minute. I'm all out of fluid and my throat hurts. I'm going to be back in just a couple seconds. I'm going to run in the next room. I'm going to go get some more water, and then we will answer that question. All right, I'm back. Let's see. One of these. There we go. That's the button I wanted. So we now begin another Monica moment. So the question is, how are we going to monetize? How am I going to open up new factions? How am I going to open up new packs? Now I want to start with, we are not going to make this a free-to-play game. And I want to be very clear about that. There's not going to be any sort of free-to-playness in it. There's not going to be any gacha-style mechanics where you have to keep buying packs and maybe this pack has the hero in it that you want. We're not going to do any of that. I don't like that. As a game player, I don't like that. I feel, personally, for a strategy game, I want to know that everyone has a reasonable chance to play this game at a reasonable level without having to put $100 into constantly buying more packs or anything like that. So that's not something we're going to be doing. So let me put that on the table right up front. When we make the original game, and I don't have a price point for it yet, we're actually debating price point and figuring out how much it's going to cost, and that's a thing that we have to sort out, including what is that price point going to be on mobile versus Steam, or is that going to be different? There's a lot of conversations that are still taking place where I don't know the answers to those questions just yet, as much as I'd like to give you those answers. But what I can tell you is there will be an initial, not additional, an initial purchase, and that initial purchase is here's the game, here's all the stuff, enjoy, right? And it's all there. But some of it will be unlocked through the campaign mode. And I know this has been a point of contention. I know some people say, hey, I bought the game. Why can't I just have it all be unlocked the minute I start? Why can't I play anything I want the minute I start? I want to play multiplayer and I want everything to be open and available right now. And I get that, but what happened, we did that with Kalasia. And when we did that with Kalasia, I think it actually cheapened the experience a little bit, because it's kind of like Christmas isn't any fun if I let you open everything up all at once. It's a lot more fun to let you open up one present, on Christmas Eve, and open up another present on Christmas morning. If I give you everything all at once, you don't appreciate it very much. And there's a sense of success and completion and enjoyment that comes with having the little bit of frustration of not having it all there and not having it all available to you at the very beginning of the game. So what I would like to do, this is the current plan, is that through playing through the campaign mode, you actually unlock different factions. And so as you get to here, then that unlocks this faction. As you get to here, that unlocks that faction. So that when you are playing other people in multiplayer games and you see them have this unit or that unit, they know that they've played this game and they played through that. This does a couple things. One, I think it makes you appreciate what we're giving you in the game a little bit more. When you get that unit, you're going to like that unit more because you had to do something to get it instead of just having it handed to you. But I think it also means that you're going to get more involved in the lore and more involved in the story, which people talked about wanting to do. So this is the current plan. Is that what I'm promising? Absolutely. And you guys should all lynch me if it doesn't actually happen. Please don't. That may change as we move forward. But one thing I will, hand on heart, tell you, we're not going to free to play this up with a whole bunch of gotcha style mechanics where you have to keep buying packs. I had people suggest that, and I guess there's money to be made there, but not money I want to make. I don't like that style of gameplay, so we won't be doing that. That's the end of